Alright, let's talk about something really important in Dissidia Duellum Final Fantasy. And no, it's not just the characters. If you've been playing for a bit, you already know this game flips the usual gacha formula on its head. It's not only about who you pull, it's about what you pull. The real power spike doesn't come from unlocking a flashy new fighter, it comes from the UR abilities you equip on them. In fact, some characters only start to feel truly broken once you land the right UR ability. That's when things get crazy. Every character in the game has two UR abilities that completely define how they perform in battle. These aren't minor upgrades, they shape playstyle, damage output, utility, everything. So if you're trying to build an absolute powerhouse instead of just collecting names from the Final Fantasy universe, you need to know which UR abilities are actually worth chasing. In this video, we're ranking all UR abilities in Dissidia Duellum Final Fantasy and breaking down which ones deserve your pulls and which ones you might want to skip. Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video and I'm ranking abilities in Dissidia Duellum Final Fantasy. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. The abilities in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Ace, Fire RF, Ramza, Cheer Up, and Minwu, Teleport. Alright, this is the part of the tier list where things get a little awkward. Not terrible, not completely useless, but the kind of abilities that make you say, yeah, I guess that's fine. Welcome to C tier in Dissidia Duellum Final Fantasy. Let's start with Ace's Fire Rapid Fire. On paper, it sounds cool. Fire-based rapid fire? That should be explosive, right? Well, only if you are actually committing to a fire combo setup. If you are building around elemental synergy or specifically running someone like Terra who can truly capitalize on fire damage interactions, then sure, this can slot in and do its job. But outside of a dedicated fire composition, it feels way too narrow. It does not bring flexibility, it does not redefine a character's role, and it definitely does not carry fights on its own. Most of the time, you will look at your universal rare slot and think, there has to be something more impactful than this. Then we have Ramza's Cheer Up. And listen, this ability can have a hero moment, transferring 80% of your bravery to clutch out a win. That sounds amazing in theory. The problem is that it only shines when you are on the brink of disaster and somehow still sitting on a mountain of bravery. That is a very specific scenario. In regular fights, it often ends up being awkward, risky, or just straight up unnecessary. You are sacrificing your own momentum for a gamble that might not even pay off. When it works, you feel like a tactical genius. When it does not, you just handed over your power and hoped for the best. That inconsistency keeps it firmly in C tier. And finally, Minwu's Teleport. Now this one is not bad. It is just situational. If you are using a character with painfully limited mobility, Teleport can suddenly feel like a lifesaver. Repositioning can absolutely matter in certain encounters, but here is the issue. Most characters either already have decent movement options or benefit more from an ability that boosts damage, survivability, or team utility. Using your universal rare slot for movement alone is a tough sell unless your build desperately needs it. So while Teleport has its moments, it often ends up feeling like you passed on something stronger for convenience. And in a game where power spikes decide fights, convenience rarely wins championships. The abilities in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Sealed Sacred Light, Trance, Terror, Trance, Zidane, Crackshot, Army of One, and Selfie, Wall. You know that middle ground where an ability is clearly strong, but you still hesitate before locking it in. That is exactly where B tier lives in Dissidia Duellum Final Fantasy. These are good tools, just not the kind you build your entire strategy around. Let's start with Sealed Sacred Light. This is Krylee's only damaging universal rare ability, which already makes it feel important. Unfortunately, the numbers do not really back that up. It has a fairly long cooldown, and the damage output is underwhelming for something that is supposed to be premium tier. Where it actually shines is as an escape tool. The mobility and repositioning value are more impactful than the raw damage itself. So you are not picking this to melt health bars. You are picking it because sometimes survival is more important than style. Now let's talk about Trance for Terror. When this works, it feels incredible. The problem? That cooldown is massive. On top of that, it demands commitment. You need to build your loadout around multiple fire element abilities to really unlock its potential. If you are prepared and the stars align, Terror turns into an absolute menace. But if your setup is not optimized, you are basically sitting on a very shiny button that you cannot fully utilize. High ceiling, high commitment, long wait time. Classic B tier energy. Zidane's Trance lives in a similar space. It is solid, especially when you combo it properly with his kit, but it leans heavily on synergy. On its own, it does not redefine him. It needs support from his other abilities to truly pop off, and again, that cooldown is not doing it any favors. It is good, it works, it has moments, but it is not the first universal rare you rush for when building Zidane. Reliable? Sure. Game-changing? Not quite. Crack Shot is one of those abilities that sounds amazing in theory. You deal severe damage and then you lower the enemy's defense. That debuff is legitimately valuable. The catch is execution. The range and positioning requirements make team coordination tricky. You need a teammate ready to capitalize immediately, and in the chaos of a fight, that follow-up is not always guaranteed. When it connects perfectly, it feels tactical and clean. When it does not, you are left thinking about what could have been. Army of One gives Lightning a flashy forward dash and high damage burst. It acts as both a gap closer and a damaging strike, which sounds perfect for her playstyle. The issue is, Lightning is already highly mobile. She does not desperately need another way to close distance, and while the damage is solid, it usually only dents the opponent rather than deleting them. It is strong, it is stylish, but it is not pushing her into unstoppable territory. Finally, Selfie's Wall is quietly one of the more practical picks here. Nullifying status elements is always useful. On top of that, it reduces damage taken and can be applied broadly, not just selfishly. With a 36-second cooldown, it is relatively accessible compared to some of the longer wait abilities in this tier. The only reason it does not climb higher is because there are multiple other ways to mitigate damage in the game. Still, reliable protection for anyone on the team, that is never a bad thing. The abilities in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: Ultimate Shield, Legend of the Deep Forest, Riot Blade, Omnislash, Meteor, Grand Lethal, Fated Moment, Trigger Happy, and Thunderfall. Now, we are getting into the fun territory. A tier in Dissidia Duellum Final Fantasy is where abilities stop being pretty good and start feeling like real power plays. These are the universal rare picks that consistently put in work, just barely missing that completely broken status. Ultimate Shield is solid and straightforward. It deals respectable damage in a cone, and if your positioning is on point, you can catch multiple enemies at once. That multi-target potential is what gives it value. But let's be honest, that is kind of all it does. It hits hard, it hits in front of you, and that is the whole story. Strong? Yes. Revolutionary? Not quite. Still, dependable damage with decent coverage is never a bad investment. Legend of the Deep Forest is Kryle's bread and butter. This is continuous healing at its finest, capable of restoring up to 300% over 15 seconds. That kind of sustain can completely swing prolonged fights. It is easily the ultimate healing tool in her kit, and almost mandatory for her loadout. The only thing holding it back from S tier is the 75-second cooldown. That is a long time to wait in high-pressure matches. When it is active though, your team feels nearly immortal. Riot Blade gives Terra a powerful ranged option that really changes how she controls space. She deals high damage in an area far ahead of her, which is fantastic for zoning. Enemies trying to rush you? Punished. Enemies running away in a straight line? Also punished. The range alone makes it valuable, especially in chaotic team fights. It lets Terra apply pressure without overcommitting, and that kind of safety plus damage is always welcome. Omnislash is exactly what you think it is. Yes, that Omnislash. The classic ability comes back swinging, dealing severe damage and absolutely deleting anything caught in its path. When you time it correctly, it can devastate an entire push or wipe out a priority target before they even react. It is flashy, it is brutal, and it rewards good timing. This is one of those abilities that can instantly turn momentum in your favor. Meteor fills a similar role for Rinoa as Lightning's Thunderfall does for her. It is a circular area of effect attack that can clear out all monsters gathered under a crystal in one clean drop. That alone gives it incredible objective value. If the enemy team is grouping or trying to pressure a point, Meteor makes them think twice. It is reliable, wide-reaching, and extremely satisfying when it lands on a crowded area. Grand Lethal transforms Zidane into exactly what the name suggests, a lethal threat. With only a 32-second cooldown, it is surprisingly accessible for the amount of damage it deals. The cone-shaped attack can strike multiple enemies at once if you position properly, chunking health bars in a way that feels unfair. The shorter cooldown means you are not stuck waiting forever to impact the fight again. Consistent pressure plus serious damage, that is A-tier material. Fated Moment is all about setup and timing. It creates a delayed explosion, allowing you to damage enemies without even being near them. That alone opens up strategic possibilities. When it detonates properly, it not only deals damage, but also reduces enemy speed and launches them into the air, setting up your team for an easy follow-up. The downside is that 75-second cooldown. You need patience and good prediction to make it count. Trigger Happy gives Prompto a dependable area of effect cone attack with a 42-second cooldown. It hits hard enough to clear enemies under a crystal, making it another strong objective control tool. It is not the most explosive ability in the tier, but it is consistent, reliable damage, reasonable cooldown, solid coverage. Sometimes that is exactly what you want in a universal rare slot. And then there is Thunderfall. This ability is devastating. A massive area of effect strike capable of wiping out an entire cluster of monsters. It dominates space with raw power. When combined with Lightning's passive Bright Blaze, which adds extra damage to monsters, Thunderfall becomes even more terrifying. It blankets a wide area in heavy damage and showcases just how overwhelming she can be when properly built. This is the kind of ability that makes opponents scatter the moment they see it coming. The abilities in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Supreme Soul, Cross Slash, Angel Wing, and Diamond Destroyer. Alright, this is where things stop being strong and start being straight up unfair. S tier in Dissidia Duellum Final Fantasy is reserved for the universal rare abilities that consistently swing fights, carry momentum, and make your opponents question their life choices. Supreme Soul is absurd in the best way possible. Instead of just empowering you, it empowers the entire party. Every ally gains a damage-dealing area around them, meaning anything that gets close starts melting. It turns your whole team into walking hazards. Team fights become chaotic death zones where enemies are punished just for existing near you. The value scales with coordination, and in a grouped push, it feels overwhelming. This is not just strong, it is oppressive. Cross Slash proves that sometimes simple design wins games. The cooldown is reasonable, so you are not waiting forever to use it, and thanks to Cloud's natural power, the damage is already solid. But the real magic is the short stun. That tiny window is everything. It gives you or your teammates the perfect opportunity to follow up and secure the elimination. In coordinated play, that brief stun might as well read target deleted. Efficient, reliable, deadly. Angel Wing is what pushes Rinoa from strong to terrifying. It is not just a powerful attack, it stacks to increase her attack stat over time, meaning she scales harder the longer the fight goes. On top of that, it fully restores her health. Full recovery. That alone can reset an entire engagement. If you are committing to Rinoa, this is the ability you chase. You do need to invest in her stats to truly maximize the damage stacking, but once you do, she becomes a late game monster that refuses to go down. Diamond Destroyer is the definition of momentum control. It buffs your attack and speed while simultaneously lowering the enemy's stats. That swing in numbers creates a brutal power gap in seconds. You hit harder, you move faster, they struggle to respond, and that opens the door for devastating follow-up attacks while they are practically stuck in place. A universal rare that both strengthens you and cripples your opponent at the same time. That is S tier energy all day. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.